one box, one of the bigger ones with I don't know, 8 things in it. Just grab this pile and get started. First up, we've got a Shonen Maid the complete series, which I don't know what to make of this title, but it's interesting looking. Region A, looks like it's got an English dub. Life is a mess, love is a solution. That doesn't really tell me a whole lot, because if this is a romantic comedy, well, could they be a couple? Because it'd be weird if it was love is a solution involving the kids, unless it's Shonen Maid. Actually, could these all be guys? I know they kind of look feminine. They could also be guys in a maid outfit. We've got 2 Blu-rays with an interesting frilly pattern. And then the DVDs have a different kind of frilly pattern. It's a curious series. I'm intrigued. Although I think there's a lot of things out this week that are like Gosick. This one was licensed by, was it Genion? And I've been waiting for this one for a while, the complete series part 1. That's a kind of contradiction in terms, but I guess that's what they do. No mystery is too big for this petite detective. And somebody posted a simple little clip. I'm not sure what to make of it. Just because, you know, it could be good or bad. Region A only, I expect this one to be subtitled only, but no, it looks like there's an English dub. Maybe that's why this one took so long. Because Nichijou was also with this, and I think there was a third thing, but I can't remember what it was. Well, if this is dubbed, then I guess, and the Blu-rays are gold, then I'd say that actually increases my chance of looking at this, because I thought this one was actually pretty decently received. We got Captain Harlock, Arcadia of My Youth, Special Edition. I think I have this on DVD already, so I only got the Blu-ray release that came out this time. And maybe the DVD transfer is better, I don't know. But until I've heard that's a definitive, I'm pretty much only getting this Blu-ray version, which is what I don't have of it so far. You know, DVD collection, Blu-ray collection, which is also why y'all see me get DVD and Blu-ray versions of a lot of stuff. Although you also see, let's see, audio. It looks like there's an English dub, which makes sense because I think this is a re-release of something that's been out forever. It looks like a reversible cover. Oh, I see. If you wanted it to look like that instead of this. Although since I do have the sleeve, I do kind of like having different versions, chapters. This looks like it would be very neat to visit. I mean, Captain Harlock stuff is classic 70s, I think. Let's see, we've got this, but let's dig for the Blu-ray version. So we've got Himouto Umaru-chan, which I definitely saw a lot of images of her. I'm not recognizing any of the other characters on the cover so far, but I'd say this is another high priority watch just because I got the impression this was well received. Although, unlike Gosick, that one I think I heard it was well received by name, whereas this one is just general impression of stuff. There we go. And now, looking at the back, under audio, we've got a commentary track, also English, Region A, Appearances can be deceiving, which I don't want to read too much because I want to know exactly. I want to watch it to find out exactly what that means. So, DVD version, as you can see, disc 1's the same. Disc 2's the same. Disc 3. And disc 4 fell out of its sleeve. So this is unusual. Disc 4 says special features. Banquet Mondays Doro Non? Well, disc 3 ends at episode 12. So this has 12 episodes as well. It mentions that Monday thing. Banquet Mondays. So that makes me think that interesting. It's not pretty common to have a the DVD version have 4 discs instead of only 3 from Sentai. Oh well, we got Lupin the Third Island of Assassins, and I think I've only got, oh, this is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack, so it doesn't matter if I got the DVD version before. I was going to get the Blu-ray version regardless. If the DVD version came out earlier, then I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone, I guess. And I guess this time, instead of throwing it away, let's roll it up into an easily disposable something or the other. Audio. This one looks like it has some English tracks, which makes me think it's been released in the past before. And it looks like we've got DVD version, as it says right there, and then over here we've got the Blu-ray version. Which is good that they mark those, because otherwise they look pretty similar. See, there's something familiar about that back art being a full piece of long paper thing. Oh well. Next up, Speed Racer! This would be the Funimation Blu-ray release. I think I got the impression that I only needed to get this one because I don't think this was the uncensored version or something like that, or maybe it was only English audio. I guess I'll open it up and take a peek at the back. First of all, Region A, audio. No, there's Japanese audio. So maybe I'll have to see if I need to go get the DVD version, because I think my old DVD version is English audio only. But in the interim, I do have this. And we've got stuff on the inside. Next up, we've got High School Seha Girls, which I think I had trouble verifying that was definitely anime, but I think if we're like, look here, it's got a Japanese audio track, so it's kind of hard to say it doesn't. In fact, it's Japanese with English subtitles only. So I wonder why I had trouble verifying that. Oh, well, I guess. This time I will toss it, just like that. So, I'm not exactly sure what this show is. The name's kind of weird to search for things because it looks very CGI-esque. I don't know. Maybe the CGI has nothing to do with it. Well, okay, I opened it up, but we've got DVD version, Blu-ray version, but you can see they've got different image arts. Interesting. If you line them up to the background like that, are you supposed to do that? Maybe so. certainly looks smooth. Now I have to wonder, because that looks like a chow. That totally looks like a chow. Or was that a cow? I don't know. C-H-A-L from Sonic Adventure. Is that an Endride Part 1? Region A only, English with Japanese subtitles. Is it not? English and Japanese with English subtitles are options. There's something about this design which feels a little different. Nothing super different, just, I don't know. Let's just dive into it. That in wilderness. Is that medieval-ish setting stuff? That doesn't look medieval. In fact, that looks like a city. Maybe that looks like a city? The world is upside down. Which makes me wonder if it's not a city. Is this one of those going from normal world to fantasy world kind of things then? Blu-ray DVD. Oh jeez. Well, she looks like she's wearing, I don't know, a mix. Oh well, that's my guess if I were to guess, but if I were to bet, I wouldn't. Anyways, that's this week's anime DVD collection update. So, the first thing I watched was Dimension W. It had been something that had been a bit of a curiosity, and obviously one of my subscribers was really looking forward to either me watching it or it coming out on Blu-ray DVD, I don't know which, and it had very pretty box art, English dub, so it was easy to just throw it on, and it was actually pretty good, I thought. There's some parts of it that are definitely a mix of cool and stupid, which means that somebody said that they thought it was really stupid. I wouldn't be surprised if it was for one of those reasons. A really good example is the Dimension W stuff, where it explains it in a way that sounds stupid. It's like scientists proved a Dimension W, but it's less scientists proved and more engineers found a way to tap into Dimension W. So the language is a little off there, but the entire idea that if you find a way to kind of reach into this other dimension that we can't perceive, you might be able to extract energy, which for all intents and purposes is unlimited, is actually, you know, kind of fascinating idea. And the show is kind of based on that concept, and it plays with that in some ways that are, again, you know, cool and stupid at the same time. For example, sometimes you see these effects that happen because a coil is malfunctioning. That's supposed to be, to us, something that looks God, I can't remember that guy's name. I think I was just trying to talk about him last time. He's the Cthulhu Mythos guy. I don't know. You kind of get this distinct impression of a misshapen body because of this extra-dimensional kind of pulling apart of them that may sometimes happen, which is interesting, but at the same time they play with this idea of, oh, well, it's all about human perception, i.e. that's what Dimension W is. It takes human possibility in something or the other, and it doesn't make much physics sense. I mean, it's probably inspired by things such as the idea of the quantum mechanics double slit experiment, where, you know, people talk about an observed particle causes the interference pattern to disappear, and then it's just two beams going through. But observer doesn't necessarily mean somebody with eyes looking at it, which is kind of what the word observer means to a lot of people, but it's not what is necessarily meant in the quantum mechanical sense. It has more to do with if you're interacting with something in a way that causes it to have a deterministic whether or not it went through one or the other, then that changes the nature of whether it went, how it went through one or the other, or something like that. So the observer is actually just whatever detection mechanism that would concretely determine which opening an electron went through. So, you know, there's that stuff, but again, you know, that could break it for a lot of people, but for the most part, the series introduces them as concepts, and I don't know that you could say it relies too heavily on them exactly. Because part of what makes the series interesting is, I guess, kind of our main characters, really. Just, they have a really fascinating little relationship going on, which doesn't seem particularly healthy, but it's vaguely reminiscent of, like, Chobitz's Hideki and Chi relationship, except from a very weirdly shifted perspective, because, you know, Chi isn't some completely, or Chi was just some completely innocent Blake Slade who's, for all intents and purposes, a kid growing up really fast. Whereas Hideki is a country bumpkin who doesn't know anything about technology, who wants to become part of it, that's there. And so what you have is this kind of divide between them that's a kind of technological relationship divide. And that's the same thing Dimension W has, but it's very different because she kind of knows stuff. She's, for all intents and purposes, an adult, a young adultish entity, I guess, and he isn't really ignorant of technology so much as he just really hates a lot of it, the coil stuff in particular. So there's this kind of technological relationship divide between them, but they kind of balance on a very thin line. He's a bit abusive to her, and that's probably the only part about it that I didn't really like, where they try to make it kind of endearing and maybe, but I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that. Just because, you know, that's the sort of thing where in a lot of other shows where that sort of concept works, usually it's because the relationship is such that they're close enough that they can express these sides of people that they don't want. I think this is actually classic Evangelion now that I think about it. And Shinji thinking that Misato is just a horrible slob, and everybody else thinking she's attractive, and them pointing out that for all intents and purposes he gets to see that side of her because they're family. And this show doesn't quite do that, but you're kind of interested where they're going with it, because you feel like, as abusive as he is, he's taking it out on her and conflicted about it just a little bit. You know, he's this super stoic, stone-like figure, and you kind of see these, you can feel that there's this chip cracking or something like that, where he has a definitive opinion on technology, but he does not know what to think about this very humanoid girl. And there's more to it than even just that, which is kind of what makes it interesting across the series. It's not anything that I would say is spectacular relationship-wise, but I thought it was very engaging. And that's the thing it was. It's like, even though there was this main mystery that we would need to be solved, and I didn't think it did that great of a job of trying to explain why we should care about it. You know, in that regard, Chobits was actually a lot better. But it doesn't dangle it in front of your head and make you think about it all the time. You know it's there, but it's trying to engage you in these other things, which are kind of conceptually related, but you're focused on these other situations. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good anime. If you don't like it, and I didn't hit on the reason, I'd be interested to hear why, but because, you know, I'm always wanting to expand my understanding, I guess, of stuff. But as it is, I can't blame somebody for hating it if they hated it, but I thought it was good. Next up, I started watching Free. And I'd have to say this is pretty good as well, although this one's a little harder to put my hand on exactly, because first of all, this is obviously a very popular among women sort of show, and that's because, you know, there's tons of naked men on it, or for all intents and purposes naked men, and they have a character in the show that you're supposed to kind of sympathize with along those lines, who really likes all these half-naked men, well-built half-naked men, you know, not like this. But even though it's kind of got that reputation, you can see it on the outside, and you know it's got a fan base, it's not actually really about that. It has that character who kind of observes that stuff, but outside of that, you know, it's actually, I thought, a pretty good slice of life about a bunch of guys who like to swim, or are learning to swim. One of them is still learning. And I'm not completely done with this yet. I've only finished the first disc, so, well, I guess I could probably look at disc 2 to find out. But this is disc 1 of the Blu-ray version. And yeah, you know, I've been enjoying it. I kind of want to know where it's going to go. It has this subtle vibe of an underdog story kind of going on. It's got this, there's some people learning about swimming sort of stuff, and their social dynamic is pretty fun. Let's see. There are plenty of things about it that aren't perfect. For example, I thought the English voice actors for the main characters as kids was kind of off. And part of this may be because this is the tall, lanky man style of art. And so even as kids, they, I guess, were kind of just tiny versions of themselves. So they, in the English dub, they sounded like, for lack of better words, their balls hadn't dropped yet, but they were physically built like they already had. So, didn't quite feel right, and that says a lot when you're feeling that disconnect and you haven't watched the other one. That usually means there's something off about the dub, but they don't do a whole lot of the childhood stuff. In fact, I think it was only just for the first episode. So, outside of that, I thought the voice actors were okay, you know, not coming from the Japanese side. So then the only question is the swimming stuff. And I don't know if I've ever talked about this ever or much at all, but I used to swim a lot. I know I don't have that physique anymore, but it makes a couple of things, it makes it really weird to watch because there's a couple of things that I have to wonder about. I guess the first one is the guy I mentioned who's learning to swim. You know, the entire idea is he doesn't even know how to swim, and so he sinks, and they're trying to make that kind of the main thing, and it works as a good visual gag. But I'm not sure if it actually makes sense. Tomoyo from Azumanga Daioh kind of put it the best way, which is humans are actually lighter than water, or at least most kinds of water which have anything in them whatsoever. I don't know about pure H2O is what I'm saying, because, you know, like, the more salt there is in there, the easier it is to float. On the Dead Sea, people can't go under water without help because they float like a beach ball. You know how hard it is to get a beach ball under the water, right? Same thing, I think. And for a person sinking, usually the drowning sort of stuff tends to happen because the churning of water in the head not staying up, because, like, you know, even if you're only floating with just about this much, you know, your mouth would still be under the water. Even if it's this much, you can still be inhaling a lot of water, and you can be bobbing up and down, and your mouth could be going under, even if you would normally float here or something like that. So, you know, that's why, even though humans can float in water, they're not necessarily unable to drown. But the issue is that this guy was, you know, sinking like a rock, and some of the physics don't make sense with some of the ideas that would come to mind, because basically, you know, it's a matter of, if you displace more space than the water would be in that place, then you float. So they had a weird thing where they, like, had him do a turtle curl, I guess. I've never heard of those, but that's a very low-level basic stuff. And my first memory when I was, I don't know, 3-4 years old maybe, was swimming across a pool and then getting taken to a store to be given a toy as a congratulations for swimming across a pool. Assuming I was even that old. I don't know how long ago that was. You can just find out when the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man Ghostbusters toy was released, the old classic one. Anyways, it's weird because, you know, he goes like this and he's able to float with his back, but then when he extends, he sinks, and that doesn't really change his buoyancy, which doesn't make sense. Which kind of rules out the idea that maybe he's just exercised doing other stuff than swimming too much, such that he doesn't have any body fat. you know, like dangerously absolutely no body fat whatsoever. I'm not talking about this. Everybody has a little bit, because if you have 0%, then I think you're, for all intents and purposes, about to die. But maybe I could be misremembering. I think you're normally supposed to have like 12-20% or something like that. Unless I don't remember the numbers exactly well. It was never relevant to my swimming because I was not overweight back then. The point is, outside of that, usually it's a matter of whether or not people are holding air in their lungs, I think, and they never really address this, and instead it's just, well, he starts learning, he just finds something that works for some reason. Even though my experience with that stroke was that sinking makes it hard, because if your butt goes down, then you just can't get a kick going. So, I don't know. I do like it that he's really new at it, and so he's actually breathing every stroke, which is a very beginner sort of thing. Maybe I'm saying too much. But, you know, this is something I noticed in a lot of anime which just have a character swimming, because it's easy to do the front crawl, breathing every other stroke. That's really not a great way to do the crawl. I mean, if you're doing it really, really competitively, usually you're only taking a couple of breaths per lap if you can help it. I'm talking about shorter, like maybe 50 meter, you take 4 or 5 maybe. I don't remember what I used to do. I mean, that's part of the weirdness. It's like, I expected his real problem to be, he was a runner who also did some pole vaulting, and then he was going to start swimming, and I would assume that the real problem he would actually run into has to do with using of your arms, because that's one of the reasons swimming is so, there's a lot of reasons why swimming is supposed to be so good for you. One of those being that for the cardiovascular workout you're doing, you're actually less likely to injure yourself as long as you're not drowning yourself doing something weird like trying to do a 100-yard no breather and fainting halfway through the 4th lap. Things like that. So at the same time, it tends to exercise a lot of muscles that you just don't really use elsewhere, which is why there's some exercises that have you taking your arm, putting it on a wall, and rotating your arms. That's something that, for other sports, I don't think you really need to do. Unless the pole vaulting helps, because maybe you do need a lot of weird arm, shoulder things in order to lift yourself up on the pole or something. But it's really weird. Anyways, as you can tell, I've been enjoying it. Oh, the other weird thing. I'm not sure if this is something about the anime, something about Japanese swimming, or something I'm just misremembering, but they're playing this idea that the heats are elimination rounds. I don't remember it ever being like that. I mean, my memory was that it all came down to your qualifying time, and if they wanted 1 or 2 heats for their finals, you know, that determined whether you were in the top 8 or the top 16, unless you were in a 6-lane pool, in which case it was 6 or 12. But usually it was based on your time, and the anime has not said anything that makes me concretely sure if this is just the weird Japanese way of doing it, or if I'm misremembering, or if it's just being done for dramatic purposes, because if it is the timer thing I was remembering and it was only 1 heat of finals, then that would basically mean that our main character's rival has to worry more about the main character, or less about the main character, and more about those other 7 people that apparently have the same time as him but are still faster than... It's like, why are you competing against this one person if he's not the fastest person out there? I don't even mean out there in the world, but I mean like out there in the one meet. I don't know. It's weird stuff. But most of it doesn't really detract from the enjoyability of it, so I've been enjoying it. And I'm going to finish it before I watch any of the things I got today, although there are a handful of things today that I really want to watch, so I guess I'm just going to have to consider going for the anime, because I'm always falling behind. Because like, I didn't watch any other anime other than those 2 things, I guess mostly because of Mario Kart 8. I decided to, I guess since it was a 3-day weekend, I felt like I had more time to try to unlock more stuff in there. I've already unlocked everything that you can get by collecting coins, save for the one that's at like 5,000 coins, the gold kite, I think. Because basically I figured once I get all the basic parts and I can assemble whatever basic carts I want, then I can do all the other stuff that I want to do without problem, because if I don't do that stuff, we have everything we need to construct pretty much any vehicle other than, oh yes, you spent a lot of time playing Mario Kart 8. So, that basically meant I got to play my Rosalina in the little bug cart thingy. I don't know. Anyways, I guess I played a lot of Mario Kart 8 unlock. I got all 48 time trials of 150cc beating the staff, which is a good first step because that lets you know the layout of the courses to find shortcuts that you maybe wouldn't normally notice. And now I guess I'm just marching up the CCs and getting all the trophies for that, and eventually I guess maybe I'll try the 200 stuff. I don't know. I'm not too hard set on having to unlock stuff. It's just been fun. But I can't think of anything else. Yeah, I can't think of much else to really talk about. Just debating whether or not I want to say anything about Logan, because it came out on Blu-ray DVD last week, and I did watch it with a friend, rewatch it actually in my case. I do like that movie. I think I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of Patrick Stewart's more fun moments. I don't know about Hugh Jackman, because I don't know. They were also great in that movie. It's a very different kind of movie for X-Men stuff, I guess. But I don't want to go into that too much. I think I'm just going to let y'all have a nice week.